discussion about potential contests for video production, and Josh Dempsey is going to kind of lead the conversation and um, get us going. So, Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you and pin your screen. So, um, you're the man. It's your show.
Cool. All right. How's everybody doing? Is this working? Can y'all hear me? All right, cool. First off, I always feel inadequate doing these things whenever I'm talking to Tom because he's always got the awesome mic and the whole setup. So, like, I just figured out how to use AirPods, so I'm excited. Anyway, um, so this year, I would say that skills was a little bit of a disappointment. I know that there a lot of I don't know, people who like were definitely disappointed how things went at region and then how things went like at state in terms of things getting turned in and all this kind of stuff. And then the fact that once we got to state, it didn't happen. And it was, I don't know, it was, I guess the best thing I could say, the nicest thing I can say is it was deflating to have put in all that work and then for it just to go the way that it did. And I say that as the person who was trying to organize it and the person who also had people competing in it. And so it was disappointing on a number of levels there. So what I would like to do, and something that we've always talked about every time we get together, there's a mention of this, is establishing competitions that we can do independent of skills, independent of even uh, like student television network, that kind of thing, but actually to come up with competitions that we collectively and collaboratively are organizing and putting out so that we give our students the best chance to participate and to get the most out of their high school experience, and something that we have a little bit more control over. That way we can ensure that things are done the way that we would like for them to be done so that it's most equitable, most fair, and most productive, I guess, for the students. So with that in mind, I just wanted to kind of go through this presentation. I'm assuming y'all see my whole screen there or just this tab. I don't know how that works. Like, Tom, what do y'all see?
Hang on. I unpinned you, so now you should be able to present.
Okay, so do you see my Google Slides presentation then?
I just see you.
Oh, okay. Well, hello. Let me try this again. So it says there's an error. Let me try it again.
You want me to present it on my end?
Maybe. Did it come through?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to do audio video competitions, and what did call this, like a way to spread the love, because I think that there are so many of us that come from different backgrounds and have strengths that make our students better at one thing or another. And so what I would like to do is kind of open it up so that we can have competitions that like kind of work across the whole gamut of what we do. And so what I have decided is I think that would work well if we have some competitions that are statewide competitions and some competitions that are regional competitions. So with the statewide competitions, obviously, that would be open to all state video and film students. That would be in our public schools. It would be open to like Georgia Cyber Academy, those kinds of students who are like able to do stuff at home. And honestly, I wouldn't have a problem if we opened it up to high school homeschool students, just because I think that it should be open to anybody who would like to participate. Um, all the submissions, though, I think should be handled by one entity. So kind of the issue with skills this year is I was trying to put together competitions, but skills was collecting the competitions and other people were judging the competitions. And so it was so many different things going on that it made it really difficult to really know what was going on. And so, and there were some good things about the way we did things this year, but I am just kind of left with this bitterness in my like in my mouth right now about all of this. So I'm seeing a little bit more negative to the way things were done, and so Tom actually helped with that as well. So he's a much better positive spinner than I am on these things. So he might can speak to some of the positives there, but I think that one entity needs to be responsible for collecting that, whether it's Skills USA, whether it's MEFCA, whether it's the Georgia Film Academy, or whether it's a particular school that opens up a competition for everybody or something in their region or whatever. One particular group needs to be responsible for that. One thing that I think needs to happen is everything needs to be made publicly viewable. And I started like downloading all of the videos that were submitted for skills this year. Um, y'all, it was 7 hours of video like that were submitted for all the Skills USA video competitions. 7 hours of video that I had to go through, download, and then figure out how to get uh, all of that shared publicly. And I'll be honest with you, I started that at work because I had fast internet, and it is probably sitting on a computer that I couldn't even put my hands on now if I wanted to, because they've torn down my classroom. So it may be early next year before I can get that. So I apologize for that. But just the way everything happened with the coronavirus and stuff, I'm not sure that I can get my hands on everything right now. But I think that everything needs to be publicly viewable. That way, everybody can look at the competition and they can say, okay, wow, that's cool. They did that. Maybe that's something that we need to look at doing next year, or, we can improve in this area. And so it just kind of gives you an idea of who you're up against. And I just think that that is something that's very valuable. It's a part of what I think needs to be transparency in these types of things. So whoever runs a competition, first and foremost, when people submit, you get it up and out there so everything is immediately available. I think that in these cases, scores need to be publicly viewable so that you can say, okay, well, this team got a 10 for creativity and a 7 for production, and then you look at the video and you're like, oh yeah, I can see it was a really creative effort, but they don't know how to white balance, or whatever it is, so that you can use that as a teaching tool in your classrooms, which is ultimately what all of this is. And competitions are great for our kids and that they get to win something and have bragging rights, but it's a really, really good way for us to teach our students and to motivate them. And so I think that having the scores there for that is helpful. I don't, however, think that the feedback that we get, I don't think that that needs to be publicly available. I think that that is something that's specific to each team, and that I think, or each entry. And I think that that's something that would need to be sent directly to the teams that are submitting. I also think that there are times where we need to have regional competitions, and like if you're in Rabun County and you want to have a film festival and open it up to the counties around you, then have a regional film festival in that particular case. So I think having like some geography confined areas is good. I don't know that the best way to divide up the regions is the way that skills has the regions divided. It um, seems like Region 3 in Skills USA is kind of like the SEC in college football. It's for some reason, it's West Georgia from Carrollton through Douglas, Paulding, Cobb, Fulton. I mean, it's just a huge area of big schools. So I think, maybe dividing it up would probably be better, but I don't necessarily want to have to go through and be the one to redraw the districts there. So definitely would like conversation about that. Sometimes those regional competitions may be necessary to advance to a statewide competition. And I think like this year for broadcast news at Skills USA, I know that we had some issues where, I don't know, let me see. Am I back? Am I there? Hello?
Yes.
I can't
yes,
hear.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I know this year with Region and Skills for broadcast news, people were submitting videos, and then only the top 16 get to advance to state. Well, the top 16 may be, like in this case, again, like I said, Region 3. I think 8 teams out of the top 16 were from Region 3 this year for broadcast news. And so I don't think that at Skills, one, I've had this conversation with Ashley at Skills. I don't think they need to call that a region competition. It needs just to be like a state qualifying event. Like it's really just a terminology issue at that point. But for us, I think we do need to have regional qualifying events before we get to some other things. So maybe we're having a state film festival. And it's a 48-hour film festival or whatever. Maybe at your region you determine, like with your group, like whatever professionals that you bring in, I think that you need to have a decision about which is going to represent your region, and then that goes to a state level. I just think that would be pretty beneficial. And I see, I don't know if like I'm supposed to hop into the chat here, so I need to think of a way to communicate. So Jeremy, when you say to communicate all the competitions, that's central and not all over the place, are you meaning we need to have like a central location, like it needs to be handled through like MEFCA, the Media Education Foundation of Georgia, or like, is that what you're trying to say there?
And guys, this is a roundtable, so you don't necessarily have to stick to the chat. So hop in to streamline that. It's a little different than a straight up presentation.
Okay, so he says yes. All right, I would definitely love to have some more feedback. I feel like I'm just talking and talking and talking. And
hey, Josh.
Hey.
I know. Speaking of this is something we've talked about in the past of doing, and also GFA lead teachers have been tasked. And Jason, I think I saw your name. You can back me up on this. Has been tasked with creating a film competition for Georgia Film Academy. Now, I don't know. We hadn't got any further than just that as far as
our plans were a little bit derailed when all this stuff started happening, but we were already talking about a lot of the things that you're talking about now. And as far as what Jeremy was saying with the central thing, I think rather than like a central location, just like a central organization that makes things easy to find as far as the information goes. I don't know about y'all, but one of the things that I found kind of difficult with Skills was having to really dig to find out what the competitions even were. So that was, it was kind of frustrating on that regard.
And guys,
I absolutely agree.
Hey Josh and guys, that's what I was talking about, is having to dig through so much information. If there's just like a central place for everything to be, it would make it so much easier. especially as a first year, wanting to give our kids a chance. Well, if we have to dig through 30 yards of muck to get to the 2 yards worth of good dirt, then that's an issue.
I'll speak to that as positive spin as I can put on it. Here's what we are facing now as video teachers in the state of Georgia, and I'm not coming down on any organization. Skills, Natus, STN, GFA, CTURN, MEFCA are all organizations who have a voice in our space. They all are grasping for our attention. And Skills, like it or not, that's our CTSO. I think that what we've got to figure out how to do is find a way, and I will kind of take the lead on this as much as I can moving forward, in that we have a point to where someone goes in and digs that out, because Skills, there's 194 competitions, literally, of which we are 12. So I agree with what Jeremy said, and that may be a failing on my part in trying to unify this stuff. But that is something that I've put in the notes to take care of in the future. But that is it's not necessarily an issue. It's just a challenge to find a way to get all of these people singing the same song. And that's a conversation that I've had with Josh Dempsey, Josh Lee, with Lynn Wilson, with Ashley, that they're all fighting for our attention and our space. And we got to figure out a way to unify that in order to really to make it easy, because it is. I mean, it is. I've been doing this a decade now, and I still could not tell you where to go and find what the contests are. I just go from memory. So, Jeremy, as a first year teacher, don't feel like you're missing it. I'm a decade in and still couldn't tell you.
I know that last year I took the all of the competitions for video, put them in a folder on Google Drive, and then shared that in the Facebook group. But I don't know that that's always the best way. I think it's a good way of getting information out, but there are a lot of teachers who are not really, not involved with the Facebook group or whatever. So we definitely do need to, I guess, be better about, I would say, use the MEFCA website, just because that's something that everybody can access. So maybe we can go that route in the future. And I'm not sure, who would be doing that. I don't know that it will be me, but like maybe MEFCA would be a good option for things like that, which is kind of what I envisioned when I started with MEFCA. But I mean, we're clearly not there yet.
What also, while we're talking about this, since I'm going to middle school now, and I'm thinking along those terms instead of high school now, would there be a separate middle school competition for those of us who have video programs in middle school, or would it be just one? Because I've seen some middle school videos that were really good that could compete with a high school student.
Honestly, I think that it needs to be middle school inclusive, but separate in that regard. Some middle schools probably could compete with some high schools, but I think there should be a middle school, category, and then a high school category, and so on and so forth. And I think that having you and some other really strong middle school teachers kind of head that up, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll be glad to help in any way. And the experience that I gained with helping to create the one in Cherokee County, that was a 1.5-year process just to put hours together. So, yeah. And you did some awesome things with that. And honestly, that's a whole different thing, is the film summit. I would love for us to have something like that on a larger scale. So we definitely need to be talking about that. But let me hop back in here, I guess, to the presentation and see. All right, is that back up? Yes. Okay. Just like with the state competitions, I think scores, again, everything, it's about transparency. Everything needs to be available, except for that specific feedback for people. Excuse me.
specific feedback for the individual teams. Here's kind of the focus. I think we could kind of divide things up and have kind of a broadcast and video focused competitions. We could have film focused competitions and even have audio focused competitions. So, like for a broadcast, we could do a show competition. You know, maybe you submit your best show that's 10 minutes exactly or whatever. I don't know all this. That's what we're going to be talking about. But you do one that's live, or then you submit a show that you actually recorded live to tape or whatever. That I think is where like sports highlights and news packages, all that kind of stuff would fit. Commercials, PSAs, all of those things I think fit kind of under that broadcast and video umbrella. I think we need to have a film specific area of competition that's going to deal with short films. We can have like genre specific, like in October, we could have a horror film competition, or, we could have a themed competition in February about love or loss or whatever. I think some of these are things that we can say in August, hey, this is going to happen. This is going to be the deadline in November for you to turn in a short film about whatever you want it to be, and we'll judge it. And then sometimes we may need to say, okay, we're going to follow more of the 48-hour festival format where we just give them, the line and the character name, all that kind of stuff. I think that I don't know. I put shows edited. I guess that still really would go under broadcast, but it could be film since it's a lot more editing intensive. Trailers, like I don't know, like maybe a trailer competition, documentary competitions, and writing competition. So I know that the Georgia Film Academy is working on a screenplay competition where the winning entry will have their play read by SAG actors on a stage. So that kind of thing, I think, falls under film. And I think that it's something that we work with the Georgia Film Academy to make successful. I mean, they would run that whole thing, but we need to be the ones that are like, hey, give us more information. How can we help? How can we get this out? How can we get kids involved? So that is a big part of all of this, is us saying to our kids, this is happening. Let me help you make it happen for us. And so I think us really being active there is good, as well as audio competitions. I think that the podcast type format is really popular right now. I think that like the audio radio production contest at Skills has a podcast element to it. But I think if we're preparing ahead of time, that then when we go to Skills, our skills entries are going to be better and give us a good chance there. I was thinking nap packages, and I'm a video guy, so I automatically think video, but like the sound in video is amazing. And if you have somebody that's really good at just telling a story with the video and the sounds that are there, I think that that's an amazing skill set. And that to me kind of falls under audio, even though it's, it may go under features as well. Who knows? I think that we need to have competitions for field recording. So if you've got kids shooting a scene, if they do a really good job capturing good, clean sound in that scene, then I think that's something that could be submitted for audio consideration. For sound editing, how they mix all their stuff together. If they, here, I'll just type in Foley. I mean, that's huge. That's something that I think if we could come up with a competition just for Foley, we're good. But I want there to be as many competitions available in as many different areas as there are kids that want to compete in them. So if y'all have ideas for this, please feel free to add to it. Email me, let Tom know, and we could go in and we can add those different things to this.
Couldn't we form like committees to maybe focus on one aspect of each category? Like if we wanted Foley, maybe we have a committee that just focuses on developing the Foley category or documentary category or whatever.
I think that's the way it should be, and I think it absolutely has to happen that way. And the next thing that I was going to talk about is judging, and that kind of ties in with like what you're talking about, because to me, I think when you put together that committee, you need to be able to bring something to that committee outside of yourself that's going to make that committee better. So if you have somebody that you know is an audio expert that's working in the industry, then bring them into that committee so that they're a part of this, so that they can help make it stronger. So to me, I think that is hugely important. And just talking about this, I just want to go back to skills and how that went this year and say, I was in a meeting in mid-December when Ashley asked MEFCA to run the 4 main competitions for Skills USA this year: the broadcast news, digital cinema, TV video, and audio radio. She was like, hey, can y'all do these? That was December. That's something that we should have known about in August,
Yes.
you know, or earlier. But in December, she's like, can y'all do this? And I was like, well, actually, I've got kids that I want to compete in this. So what I did was I immediately agreed to make those things happen, but not through me. So I went outside of me to find people that I thought would be great at running these competitions. So I reached out to Josh Lee with the Georgia Film Academy and said, hey, digital cinema this year. Can y'all run this? Can y'all put this competition together? I gave them all the information from the previous year and said, do this. You can kind of tweak it a little bit. But will y'all do this? Will you provide the judges? Will you get all that together? And Josh immediately was like, yeah, absolutely. We'll do that. So we, from, I would say, mid-January, knew that the Georgia Film Academy was running digital cinema. And I felt really good about that because that's their craft. They know what they're doing. And so I wanted them to come in, and up until, I guess, 2 weeks, maybe even a week, I guess, before we actually went to state, we were going to have judges that were doing the judging for digital cinema who were going to be at Skills, who were going to be talking to the kids about their projects. And the judges, one of the guys is the guy who shot Spider-Man. I mean, we had actual industry people who were going to be there talking to our kids. They were the ones who judged their films and we're going to give them feedback. And I was really excited about that. And I think that that is the way that all of these things should go whenever possible. I found out about it, like I said, about a week, maybe 2 weeks before Skills. Josh was like, hey, with coronavirus, all the studios are going into some sort of panic mode. Our judges can't come. So they kind of had to pull out last minute, but they'd already judged things. So we were good in terms of the judging for that. So I was excited about that. I reached out to Tweed Recording. I don't know if any of y'all have heard about Tweed Recording. They're over near, Tracy, you have? Yeah, they're over in your area, or they're over near Athens somewhere. But they are an audio recording school. And so I was like, hey, it would be awesome if they could run audio radio production. There again, it may have been a week and a half, 2 weeks before Skills. And the lady there contacted me and was like, hey, we've had something come up. We're not going to be able to make it. Then I had reached out to a company about TV video. There's a production company out of Woodstock that does all of the corporate production for like Wellstar. They do corporate production for all, like pretty much all Chick-fil-A's corporate production. This company handles it. Do a great job with that. Not only that, the guy who we were talking with, I met John. You actually know him, is Nathan Fowler. I think you know him. He's at the film summit. Nathan is just one of those people that cares about people. Like, just when you're talking to him, you feel it, you know it. And he was very much about making this a good experience for our kids. He was like, yes, let's do it. Probably 2-3 weeks before Skills, hey, we've had something come up. And I understand these companies are going to have business opportunities, and those business opportunities are going to trump what we're asking them to do for free. So it's frustrating. But I was making every effort that I could to make these things as valuable for our students as we could possibly make it. And so that's what I want these things to be. The things that we put together, like the things that we're building now, I want that to be our future. And yeah, Jamie, I'm like, definitely, like, I've done a lot of the legwork. All of the relationships that I made through trying to set this up, those people are excited about what we're doing and definitely want to be a part of it. So I think that having them involved with these things will be a pretty easy sell. And I also don't want it to be a thing that's exhausting for them. We don't want to go to the well too many times with some of these things, you know. So we want to try to, what I had typed in my presentation was, everyone is expected to bring what they can to the competition. Open your Rolodex to us. I know we don't have Rolodex anymore, but I remember the one on my dad's office desk, just like going in there and like thumbing through that. But everybody knows somebody that they could get to help be a part of this. And for everybody that knows somebody, John Cribb knows that person plus 5 others. So, like, with everybody here, we can definitely reach out and get some things going. One more thing, broadcast news for Skills. This is the one that I'm probably most frustrated about. We had gotten Amatrace to come in and agree to run the broadcast news competition at State. And they came in on the morning of Skills, the Thursday morning when everybody was coming in. They came in early. I met them there. We got set up. Like, they spent hours that morning putting together a studio space for our kids. And it was absolutely incredible. It looked so good. If you go online and you look at some of the broadcast news entries from other schools and other states and previous years, even for us, like last year, if you go to the ESE site and look for broadcast news stuff, I'm not going to say anything bad, but what I'm going to say is what we would have done this year, it would have looked and sounded so much better than any of that. And I think that our kids would really have valued this experience this year. So it's frustrating, but yes, we do have these relationships now, and these things will be ongoing, and hopefully they'll be able to help us with other competitions. I actually have to talk to Amatrace today. So I was thinking about asking them if they would like to sponsor a competition and stuff for next year.
Josh,
yeah.
To piggyback on what you said, industry, because the teachers here in Cherokee always ask, well, how do you get people to come speak to your class? I just ask them. If I'm somebody, I go up and I just ask them. I've never had anybody tell me no. Now, I have had some people say, you know, hey, email me back and say, hey, the date we had scheduled, something's come up and I can't come. Can we please reschedule? Because I really want to come speak to your students. And I've tapped into them for the Cherokee Student Film Festival. Also, I think we also need to have a plan to include the post-secondary schools. Jeff Marker works well with us for our Cherokee Student Film Festival. And as part of them being in with us, the top 2 winners of ours automatically get entered free entry into the Georgia Film Festival that they sponsor, and they have a high school day now. And so, and also, last question I have is, talking about all this, is this going to be separate entity from Skills, MEFCA, GFA, all of that?
I want to be. There's so many people that are like Skills right now, right? They're just not in favor of Skills. So I think that a lot of these things that we're doing, some of them may prepare us for Skills, but it's not connected to Skills. Just because I do have this current situation with MEFCA, I think that they would be open to being the body that's like where all of this goes through.
Right.
But like I don't know that they are really the ones that run everything. Like I think it needs to be us in individual pockets or individual teams that are kind of putting this stuff together and running it. But I think we need to steal as many competitions from STN as possible.
Right.
And we make them our own. I think we need to steal as many things from Skills as we can and make them our own. And everybody's individual film competitions, make it our own.
Right.
Josh, I think the problem might be that we're not really organized well enough to do this. I mean, think about it. We've got the Georgia High School Association that handles things like athletics across the state. Shouldn't there be some sort of state association like that for what we're talking about? Because I think if we can kind of centralize that, then stealing those things from those other organizations would be much easier to do, because we'd have a more organized way to disseminate that information to all of our teachers.
I completely agree, and I think that that's what MEFCA should be. In my mind, I think that MEFCA is that body that can do that. The issue is, and you've heard Tom talk about the money disparity between us and other organizations. I think SEFCA's budget, annual budget, is like $1.6 million. MEFCA's budget is $20,000. And we asked for more money last year and didn't get it. And I'm guessing with the way things are going right now, we probably won't get it for the upcoming year either. And so the point of that is there's, MEFCA had to pay for Skills. We've got to pay for the floor space and all these different things. MEFCA's got to pay for like all the industry certification stuff. When there's so many different things. And then there's not enough money left over to pay somebody to do MEFCA full time. And honestly, there's not enough money there to pay somebody to do MEFCA part time. And so it's really frustrating because we need a full time person at MEFCA to make MEFCA what it needs to be, but the money's just not there. And I teach extended day and I do so many other things. Half of this year, I was working on my specialist degree. And so it's a lot, and then for everything that MEFCA wants from you or needs from you, it's just, there's not enough hours in the day to be able to commit to it. So I think that MEFCA is a great starting point, but it needs more support from the state.
And let me give a little bit of background on MEFCA. We've got a good variety, a good number of newer teachers. MEFCA, when I started 10 years ago, was known as New MEFCA, which was the New Media Education Foundation of Georgia, MEFGA. Jason, MEFGA, Media Education Foundation of Georgia. So it was around for a year or so when I started and then disappeared. And then it came back on full force with Shannon. had growing pains, and there hasn't been stability in that position other than Josh and Kevin in the last 2 years, Josh, year and a half.
Yeah, 2 years.
And honestly, without having someone who can do it full time or at least mostly part time, it's going to struggle. So I think that I'm going to just say this: Mefka is the only one that doesn't have their hand in our pocket. I mean, that is what it is at this point. And as I prepare for new teacher stuff later in Camp TNI, here are the acronyms that have just been used in this conversation: MEFCA, NATAS, GFA, Skills, DOE, TIGA, GACTI, STN, Reimagine Atlanta, and then all the other film festivals. But I think that MEFCA is the only one that doesn't have their hands in our pocket. So I think that if we're going to some of the stuff that I'm seeing is kind of get together and figure out. It needs. I think it should be under the MEFCA umbrella because the other places are getting their funding. Skills is getting it. Tyga, GACTI, STN, all those places are getting it, but they're also spreading it. MEFCA is the only organization other than the Film Academy that is solely for video production teachers. So I think that, and I know that Josh is probably going, I'm going to kill you after this meeting and whatever. But I do think that if we're going to do this, it should be under the MEFCA umbrella as opposed to creating something new or going a different way.
How much pushback could we expect from the other organizations, though? Because nobody likes to give up their toys.
No matter what we do, we're going to get pushback. The CTSOs, yeah, we would have, and MEFCA and Skills USA, Jeremy, are kind of one. They're not one and the same. Skills reaches out to MEFCA to help make those things happen, and that's the way it should be. I'm not going to bash ESE. It should have been MEFCA the whole time. Let's just say that. There we go. So it should be one and the same. But we have to build MEFCA up, and it can't just be Josh. It can't just be the MEFCA meetings that I've gone to have been the same 8 or 10 people, and 7 of those 8 typically are not educators. So we've got to figure out a way to build the MEFCA up from the educator standpoint and go from there. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, well, and not only are they not educators, most of them are about 10 to 15 years past retirement.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that in a negative way, because the wealth of knowledge that these guys have and some of the products that they put out is absolutely incredible. And we're fortunate to have them on the board, but we need an influx of youth, not into MEFCA, maybe not necessarily at the board level, but because the board will support us. The board is not our enemy at all in this case, but they also just there's only so much they can do. Like, it's us that really have to take it and do something with it. So I hate to keep going back to Skills, but I do want to say I found out in December about the first 4 competitions. Tom, what was it? Mid-February, I think, when I found out that we were over all of the competitions for video for Skills USA. So
it was the first week in February.
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff changing, and so for me, never having run something like this, it was a bit daunting. I hate it for my students this semester because I cheated them. Like, when I should have been teaching my kids, I was having to do this because, like, I didn't have any time in the day to get it done. And so I hate that. But and that's why I think it needs to be us. It doesn't need to be one person. It needs to be a group of people who are like, hey, we want to do this. And I think that one of the first things we need to do is kind of get a calendar together, and maybe that's something I can get onto the MEFCA website, where we could go in and we can set dates for competitions, and then we say, okay, that's our competition. All the videos are due this day. We need to start pushing out the rules for this competition by this date, and we're accepting entries this date or whatever. So there's so much, and just looking at the chat, it really does seem like y'all are the right. Thank you for being here. Honestly, I really appreciate your willingness to even listen to me ramble for this hour.
So let's do this,
go ahead,
Josh. The last 12, 13 minutes. I know I said 12, 15, but it looks like we're going to go to 12:30. I do want to get some ideas, and if you guys jump in, throw them in the chat, different contests that you want to see, so that we have a list of takeaways. And some of the things that Josh and I have talked about offline, things like sports highlight. What's the difference in a highlight film and a hype video? So, I mean, just different ideas. There are no bad ideas at this point. And if let's steal from other places and make them our own. So let's definitely do that for the next couple of minutes, just to get some stuff. And I'm making notes on my other screen.
I see your question about the time frame, John. I think that's something that we need to kind of look at, and obviously all of that will be impacted by when or if we go back to school next year. I heard yesterday somebody was like, "Oh, I don't think we're going back till January." Like, apparently that's a pretty common thought right now, is that they're not going to be open fall semester for on-campus learning. I heard that Cal State University system, that's what they did. They decided no on-campus meeting. So all of that will kind of be determined by how things turn out, with this situation. But I think if we can just come up with the list of competitions now, and then we can, like Lewis there with Foley and sound design stuff. I think Lewis should definitely be doing some of our sound competitions, because that's Lewis, that's your background, right? You are a sound guy. So I think having like all these competitions listed out and people saying, yeah, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah, definitely.
And Tom, I think.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Tom, like, are you able to save the chat as well? I don't know how that works on here.
Yeah, the comments are being recorded as well.
Okay, awesome. Go ahead, Lewis.
I was just saying, if it comes down to it, and we actually have to do audio, sound design, Foley, those kinds of things, anything having to deal with competitions, dealing with mixing, if it's anything having to do either with music or with film, I would definitely be into working on that aspect of the competitions in whatever capacity I could fulfill. So, just let me know how you want it done.
I think that's awesome. Is like the backgrounds that we all have. I know there's a good many of us that come from the news side of things, so we can handle documentary and news packages, and some of us may have been sports producers and be really good at that. And then looking at Lewis and his audio background, and Tom and his everything background. I mean, there's so many different like strengths that we have. I think that we can really make these competitions what our students need instead of what they have to do. So like going back, who was it? Was it Jeremy? I think said that about CTSOs and Skills USA. Here's my thoughts on the whole thing. Do Skills USA, do the POW, get the money, encourage your kids to compete, because it's just another thing that they can do, another feather that they can put in their cap, whatever they can put on their LinkedIn page, whatever it is, it's experience. But we will also have these other competitions that can just by virtue of competing will prepare your kids for those things.
Hey, Josh, I think one component of this too that we need to do, and I'll be willing to help with this. I don't know if you want me to head it up, that's fine too, but you and I can talk about this. We need somebody or a couple of people or whatever to be getting, once we have the game plan and like a proposal in place or a business plan or whatever on how this is all going to work to organize the industry and our contacts. So they're not being contacted by 5 or 6 or 50 different people. We just have like a committee that's going to get those together. And then maybe even eventually we can start looking at, corporate funding for MEFCA to do all this stuff with.
Yeah. And the corporate funding thing, that's a whole different thing.
Right.
Kevin has really looked into that, and he's found some people that want to support us, but all of the people that want to support us have said that they need to see that the state supports us first.
Right.
And they're looking at the budget that we have, and they're like, if Georgia doesn't believe in you, why should we? So like the funding thing it's a challenge, but that's actually Kevin's strong suit. So if we continue with this, Kevin could definitely be helpful with that. But I think that having that one, like maybe we have a living document, like a spreadsheet that we use to say, okay, we've used this to contact so-and-so at this organization, and we can go from there. Essentially, like using a student information system to keep track of the notes that we take for, our kids. We do the same thing for this. So I think that would be good. So yeah, I'm seeing like Jamie did the commercials with real products as props. I think that having a commercial competition where the kids actually go out and produce a commercial for a local business and then that's submitted, I think that's an awesome, awesome thing. Like maybe those commercials are good enough that they could play on the local cable. So I would love to do this. Yeah, I like the commercial competitions being done. Like I'm a big fan of reaching outside of our areas to make these products. I think that it would be great if the marketing class met with the local business and wrote the script, and then we came in, helped plan the commercial, and then shot it. And then if they needed actors, they have kids from drama come in and do the acting. If you've got cosmetology, have them do the makeup. Like, honestly, I think we are the class that ties everything together. So I think anytime we can go outside of our class and do that, I think that'd be awesome. And I see the Crazy 8 competition. When it comes to STN, I know that's an STN competition. I have no idea what Crazy 8 is. So we definitely need people who could come in and say, okay, we want to do something like this. We're not going to call it Crazy 8, but this is kind of what we're going to do. This is how it works. This is how it's judged, all that kind of stuff. So I guess getting to the point where we can wrap it up, but not actually have to wrap it up, where you're talking about continuing beyond this class. If you're not in the Facebook group, I think that's the first place to start. Try to get on the Georgia Broadcast Teachers Facebook group, and we can send out some things on there that will allow us to keep these conversations going. I definitely would appreciate that. I think that would be great. So we'll do that. I'll put something out there today. But like all of y'all, I'm swamped with editing right now.
I'd like to interject for a minute if I can. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So those of you that know me well know that I'm not a very competitive person. I don't really jive on it. You guys haven't seen me at a skills competition in about 5 years. I have tried to put together a few contests in the past where I've moved schools and I'm in a much more geographically central location to a lot of schools, and I've put out requests in the Facebook group for help getting either getting your kids involved in a in a competition. To give you an example, we had a Halloween film festival at my school, and it had been a successful thing for a few years, and it started to drop off. One of the things that I did a couple of years ago is I reached out through the Facebook group, just asking and trying to get other people to be involved in the Halloween Film Festival, and it went nowhere. And I wound up having like I marketed it, did everything I could to get people in the festival. We had 3 people in the audience. Actually, we had 6 people in the audience. 3 of them were judges. 3 of them were on the team that won. And we had 3 videos that were submitted. So that's just kind of like put a bad taste in my mouth with competition. But one of the things is, we've talked about it. We need to be organized with whatever we do. And if you see somebody that's sending out, requests for help or requests for participate, don't just be like, okay, somebody else will help. You need to help out other people as best you can, even if it's just like throw a kid, hey man, you got nothing to do this week, why don't you try to make a project for this competition, and either show up either virtually or digitally, what are in person if we ever get back to doing that. But when somebody asks for help, you need to help them. That's my 2 cents there, and I'll stop talking because I know we're getting close to the end of the meeting. But that's just one of those things that I wanted to put out there. So.
Good point.
Yeah, no, that's definitely great input there. And I apologize. I know I saw your advertisement for the Halloween Film Festival and didn't get my kids involved because like we've all got so many different things going on all the time. And I was like, oh man, we should do that. And then I was just busy with something else and forgot to say it. So I think that if we can kind of get some of these things like organized and promoted and we're all on board with this, then maybe we don't step on each other's toes with things as much, and that may provide more opportunity for our kids to do stuff. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. Like let's help each other out. Like we're on an island at our school, but we don't have to be on an island when it comes to helping each other and stuff, like with all of this. So
Cool.
well,
I do want to say 2 things. One is we're having these conversations now in May, which has never happened. So maybe, as we're looking forward to next semester, next year, we can go ahead and start with our best intentions, planning some of those things. The other thing that I want to say is that we are the only state that have these conversations. I talk to literally 10 to 15 different states in a week, and they're not having these conversations. So we're at an advantage in that. Now we just have to leverage that and take it, to the next level, which I think having this conversation now is definitely doing that. So anybody got any other questions, any other comments before we wrap this and finish our Thursday?
Yeah. So what's the next step for planning? I mean, we all agree that this needs to happen. So what's our next step? Do we organize something to where we can come together and talk? Do we start exchanging emails? Because what's the next step? We can't just leave it at, yeah, this is a great idea.
Let's do this. Let's add it as the great thing about Camp T&I being completely virtual is there are no rules. What if we do another conversation after next week, after we get past graduations, and come up with an action plan?
I think holding off until after graduation stuff is probably a really good idea. I know everybody's swamped.
All right.
I'm down. If you guys want to organize it and send out the links for it, then I think I second the motion.
Okay. I will
Awesome.
I will add it in the week of the 26th, which will be a busy week for T&I live sessions, but I will call it Contesting Action Plan. So I will tentatively schedule that for the 28th. and I will add it to the list.
Is that going to be an open sign up or just the people who are in this meeting or what?
It'll be an open sign up.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely open.
Yeah, because there are people.
Tom, I know you're using this specifically for Camp T&I, and I think that that's good, but is there a way that we can push this particular thing out now so that we can explain, hey, we want people to be a part of this. Go back and check out this discussion and see how you could be involved.
Yeah, let me run that by the powers that be and find out for sure.
Gotcha.
Just to make
you are the powers that be.
Man, please. I'm just look. The mule's got to carry the load, and I got the harness. So let me run it past them, and I will, and I can specifically target this group as the first signups. Again, my fear on doing all of these virtual is that right now we are at 96 people on Camp T&I.
Wow.
These meetings will hold up to 250. I don't want more than 30 because it just becomes a free for all.
Yeah.
So, but I will, let me send it. Let me talk to Tim and Lynn and have the conversation, and I can use this as hey, this is what T&I really is. It's teachers talking about teacher things, and maybe get 250 teachers. But I've got it on the master schedule. Got 2 more sessions tomorrow. And then next week, there'll all be morning sessions because of graduations. And then the following week will be just bananas. So, but thank you all. Thank you, Josh, for your time. Have a wonderful day. And we'll see you guys.
Thank y'all.
See you again.
Appreciate y'all.
Bye.